Hello, people. Good morning. I hope everybody's doing great. I had to be made host. So let me check. Okay, now I think I'm made host. Right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of you. Right. So all of you write your test. I think the full test 9, right? But I don't know, the test number is 9. And I think it was full portions. Ready, guys? Write the test. Ankit, Siddesh, Ananya, Ashik, Anirudh. Did you guys write? Are you guys there?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I hope you wrote the test. Just let me download it and put it in OneNote. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Right. So, okay, this question I think we have already solved so many times, right? All we have to do, see, four atom. They're talking about FCC. Calculate the number of unit cells. They have to calculate the number of unit cells required for accommodating 1 gram of gold, right? So I know 4 atoms will be there in 1 unit cell because it is FCC, right? We all know in 1 unit cell, 4 atoms will be there if it is FCC, right? Now, if I can find how many atoms are required in 1 gram of gold, how many atoms are there? If I can calculate, I will be able to calculate what is the number of unit cells required, right? Now, how will you calculate the number of atoms in 1 gram of gold? You have to go to your mole concept, right? So one mole, say I can connect your molecular mass, 1 mole of any substance. Like, let me write this. 1 mole of any substance will have its molar mass as its weight, and 1 mole of any substance will have 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 atoms. Right now, I can connect these two now. 1 mole of anything will have will have a mass of molecular mass, and 1 mole of any substance will have this many atoms. Right. So now I know what is the molecular mass of gold, which is 197 grams. If I have 197 grams, I have 6.023 10 to the power 23 atoms. Now, how many grams I have? I have only 1 gram. So you calculate this value, and this value will go here, cross multiply, right? And you can find this particular value. Very again cross multiply, right? I hope you get this. This is a very easy question. Just that you have to know the mole concept. Very easy question, right? You can calculate. Next. Which among the following is not true for crystalline solid? They show long range order. They do not show long range order. They show anisotropy. Anisotropy is correct. They're called true solids is correct. They have sharp melting point. They do not show long range order. No, they show long range order, right? So this is the correct answer to this question. Next. Which of the following statement is not true regarding hexagonal close packing? right? Its coordination number is 12. Yes, correct. In this arrangement, spheres of the fourth layer are exactly aligned with those of the first layer. Hexagonal close packing, I think you go for AB type of packing, right? I think this is wrong, right? The third layer will be same as the first layer. That's what you have to understand, right? Third layer will be same as the first layer. So this is wrong, right? This is your correct answer then, right? They have 74% packing efficiency. Yes, correct. Tetrahedral voids of the second layer are covered with space of third layer. Yes, this is also correct, right? So the correct answer would be B, right? Okay, next. Well, the diagram shows what? Diagram shows this should have been an anion, right? But you see that there is extra electron there, right? So why that happens? That happens because you have added more positive ions, right? For me to accommodate it, you have this thing. What is that? Electron present, right? So it is metal excess defect. You have added more metal. That is why extra electron is coming here. So it is metal excess defect, right? Okay. In metal excess defect only, this is what is called as what? This is your F center, right? If you can remember, people, wherever the electron occupies the lattice point, that is your F center, metal excess defect, right? Next. Which of the following is an example for network solid? We need to have a large network of covalent bonds. So it is definitely going to be carbon in the form of diamond or graphite, right? That's the answer. Right. Next, which of the following is not true about amorphous solids? Amorphous solids can be molded by heating. Yes, they can be. Amorphous solids become crystalline, keeping for a long time. I don't think so. They are anisotropic. They may become crystalline after keeping. Possible. See, glass is there. Now glass, you keep it for a long time, you go for quartz, right? Glass is amorphous, but quartz is crystalline. This is possible. Okay, fine. They are anisotropic. No, they are isotropic in nature, right? So this is the correct answer to this question. On heating, they may become crystalline at certain temperature. Yes, this is also possible. This is what happens in your glass to quartz also. Okay, fine. Next. I think this is an easy question. Tanks used by divers are filled with air diluted with nitrogen. Right. Next, the concentration of solution is this much, right? The osmotic pressure is very easy. Pi is equal to C into R into T, where C is what is given like this, 0.3 × 10⁻² mole per liter. So that you substitute here, 0.3 into 10 to the power -2 mole per liter. R value is 0.0821. Temperature is how much? 300 Kelvin. Right. So now what will happen? I think we can easily calculate, right? So 0.3, 10 to the power -2, or I can write this as 3 into 10 to the power -3 into 0.0821 into 3 into 10 to the power +2, right? So all that remains is 10 to the power -1. So 3 into 3 will become 9 approximately. But no answer is matching. Why? There's something wrong with the question, right? 0.3, everything you're doing correctly only, right? 3 into 3, so approximately 9 it should become, right? But all are 0.0821 and stuff. The question is wrong. Okay, right. Next, if molality of aqueous solution is this much, then the normality, okay, this is not in your syllabus, people. Normality is not in your syllabus. Don't worry about it. But if they ask you molarity for the same question, we can calculate. Okay, right? Fine. Assuming that in this question, molarity is asked, not normality is asked, we have to calculate capital M. If I have to calculate, we can do this, right? How? Now for this molarity, I need number of moles of H2SO4, that is your solute, divided by the volume of solution into 1000, if it is an ml. Right? Now, from the molality definition, if there is 2, what can I say? What is molality definition? Number of moles of solute present in 1 kg of solvent, right? The 1 kg of solvent. Now, number of moles, if I say that it is 2, right? If molality is 2, that means 2 moles of H2SO4 is present in 1000 grams of water. That is what the definition means, right? So I already know the number of moles of H2SO4, that is 2. All I need to calculate is the volume of solution, right? Now I know already the solvent. See, density is given. Density is for the solution. Density of solution is equal to mass of the solution divided by volume of the solution, right? Now all we have here is 1000 grams of H2O, that is only the solvent, correct? Right? Now we have, so what is mass of solution? Mass of solution is mass of the solute present plus mass of the solvent present divided by volume of the solution. Mass of solvent, I know this is 1000 grams, right? Mass of solute I can calculate. What is solute? Solute is H2SO4. I know 2 moles of solute is there. So can I write this as mass of solute is nothing but mass of H2SO4. That will be 2 into the molecular mass of H2SO4. That is 2 into 98. Okay, 2 into 9. Why does 98 come? That is the molecular mass of H2SO4 plus 1000, right? Divided by the volume of solution is equal to whatever the value is given as density, 1.2 gram per ml. Right? So 2 into 98 will become 196. 196 plus 100 will become 1196 divided by the volume of solution is equal to 1.2. So volume of the solution will be equal to 1196 divided by 1.2. Whatever the volume you get, you convert, you put it here in the molarity calculation, right? And then H2SO4 number of moles I know is 2. We can calculate this very easily. Okay, right? I hope everybody gets this. Right. Value of Henry's law constant increases with increasing temperature. Now what we have to understand is Henry's law constant is definitely dependent on temperature, isn't it? It is not going to remain constant. Okay, so how do we look into this? Look at the Henry's law equation. P is equal to KH into X. All right, now assume that the pressure is constant. Right, we are not changing the pressure. Now what I'm doing is, see, when I increase the temperature, right, now this X is your solubility, isn't it? Right, so when temperature increases, I know solubility also increases, more amount of solutes gets dissolved, right? So when temperature increases, X increases. This we try to this fact we have to establish, right? Now I'll just rewrite this equation like this. X is equal to P divided by KH. I told you P is some constant, right? So what I can tell is X and KH are inversely proportional. That means if X is increasing, that is the solubility is increasing, then the KH value is decreasing. Right? Now what are they telling? They're talking about temperature increasing. Temperature increases, solubility increases, KH decreases. As simple as that. Right? So KH decreases with increase in temperature. That's what you have to see. Decrease with increase in temperature. B is the correct answer. Okay, right. Next, a solution showing large positive deviation from ideal behavior. When I say large positive deviation, that means it is going to form minimum boiling azeotrope. That means the boiling point would have been lowered, right? Fine. So boiling point, lower boiling point than those components, and delta H mix is negative. Okay, delta H mix should be greater than 0, right? Delta H mix is positive. Positive deviation. Delta H mix greater than 0. Lower boiling point than both the components. That is true. This part is wrong. It should be positive. Okay, but if at all I have to go for some answer, I would go for B. Okay, but this is not correct. Lower boiling point than both the components is okay, right? But delta H mix should be positive. Anyways, the answer to this question is B. Next, the boiling point of a solvent containing a non-volatile solute. I know there is always going to be elevation in boiling point. Boiling point colligative property is elevation in boiling point, so it's elevated. C. Right. Next, which among the following is soluble in water? I think the question should be which is not soluble in water. Right. The question should have been not soluble, because phenol is soluble, formic acid is soluble, chloroform. How do you remember, people? Like dissolves like. Okay, like dissolves like. So that means if I have one type of substance, that will get dissolved only in that type of solvent. Okay, so your phenol is polar, formic acid is polar, chloroform is polar, water is also polar. Right? So this is a polar solvent. All these are polar solutes, right? They will dissolve, but your benzene is non-polar, NP. So it is not going to dissolve. Okay. So that would not answer. The question is wrong. Okay, the question should have been which among the following is not soluble in water. Benzene is not soluble. Okay. Next, ethylene glycol is added to water as antifreeze. Now we know what is going to happen, right? It is going to decrease the freezing point, right? Right. That's it. Only decrease the freezing point of water. Right. Next, the oxidation state of central atom in the anion of the compound, this much. So what is the anion here? If I remove the Na plus, what I have is HPO2 minus. No issues. Now central metal atom here is phosphorus. You can easily calculate now, right? So you have plus 2 x, two oxygen atoms are there. So plus 2 into minus 2 is equal to minus 1 overall charge, right? So minus 4 plus 2 will become plus minus 2. It goes this side plus 2. So x will be plus 1. And that's it. B is the answer. You can calculate easily. Okay. Solubility of iodine in water may be increased by addition of Ki. Okay. See. Solubility of iodine in water can be increased. Iodine is I2. Okay. Now I2, you add Ki, you know what are you going to form? You are going to form I3 minus. Okay, you're going to form I3 minus. This ion is getting formed, which will be soluble in water. Okay, so that is why you're adding Ki. Right? I2 is a non-polar solute. Right? That is why it does not get dissolved in water. But the moment I add Ki, I minus comes from this. I2 plus I minus will give me I3 minus. And I3 minus, since it is ionic, it will dissolve in water. Okay. All right. Next. Which type of solid conducts electricity in molten state but not in solid state? Obviously ionic. Right? I know NaCl in solid state is not a conductor, but when I go into liquid state, that is say molten state or aqueous state, then it is a good conductor of electricity. Right? Metallic solids in solids itself, covalent solids, generally they're not even conductors except for graphite. Again, diamond, if you take example, again, they're not going to have any conductivity mostly. Again, like you can have exceptions, right? But they're specifically told in molten state they're conducting, in solid state they're not conducting. That is definitely ionic. Okay. Next, which of the following turns lead acetate paper black? This you have studied in your P block. It is H2S. Okay, this is a very important test for H2S. Okay, right. Next, of which of the following hydrides, which is which is the strongest reducing agent? See, for reducing agent, right? It first of all, it has to donate hydrogen to some other species. Obviously, if I remove hydrogen, it will get oxidized. That is true, right? Now, all I have to look for is this, whichever bond. Say I have some AH bond, right? Now, if I can break it very easily, right? Now, this hydrogen can come out, which can be added to some other species, correct? Right? So, can I tell out of these all the pH bond, ASH bond, BAH bond, and NH bond, right? In whichever case I'm able to break this H bond easily, that will easily give me H, and that can be added to some other species, so it can act as a reducing agent. I know when I go down the group, the size increases, right? Remember that smaller cation, smaller anion, very strong bond, right? But a big cation or a big anion and a small this would be a weak bond. Okay, right? So easily you can say that BiH3, that is the last one, right? That will have the weakest bond, so you can easily break it. Okay, right. Next, fine. The hydrogen sulfide reacts with lead acetate. So you can see from, if at all you didn't know this question, right? Which one? Which of the turn will turn lead acetate paper black? The clue is given in the 20th question itself. Hydrogen sulfide reacts with lead acetate, forming a black compound that reacts with hydrogen peroxide to form another compound. The color of this compound, I think, is okay. Great. Any idea what is the answer to this question, people? Okay. Please check this question. Right? You just have to know what is the compound and what is the color name. Okay. Fine. Next. Decreasing order of reactivity of halogen halides in conversion of what is that? ROH to RX. Right. So basically, we know what we have to do. We have ROH. If we write HX, I'm going to form RX here. Isn't it? Right. So again, what you have to understand, this HX bond has to break, right? So whichever bond can easily break, that will be more reactive. So I know HI bond is the weakest, HBr is okay, HF bond is the strongest. So HI will be the maximum reactive, then HBr, then HCl, then HF. B is the answer, right? Okay, next. The osmotic pressure of a solution containing 0.2 moles of this thing, again, it's this formula substitution, right? Phi is equal to C into R into T. They have given 0.2 moles of solute. That's it. Volume is not given, right? So you'll assume the mole to be the molarity. So it's just going to be 0.02 into R value, which is 0.0821 into the temperature, which is 300 Kelvin. That's it. So what is the answer now? A. Right. Next. 1 second. Okay. So, okay. Which of the following is a halogen exchange? What happens? What should happen in halogen exchange? You have some other Rx, means some Rx. Now you go for another halogen X dash. You should get Rx dash. Say this can be Cl, this can be I, something like that. Okay, now look at this. Rx in the presence of NaI becomes Rx, Ri plus NaX. What reaction is this? Can you tell me what is the name of the reaction? It's a named reaction, right? This one. Can someone tell me what is this? You don't want to answer or you don't know?
Finkelstein reaction.
Good, good. This is your Finkelstein reaction, halogen exchange, right? Okay, next. This is not halogen exchange. This is OH getting replaced by X. So this is not the case. Again, you see C double bond C is there. I'm adding HX. This is not halogen exchange. This is addition of HX. Right. Next, what is happening? X. Now this is your toluene in the presence of X2. This is your electrophilic substitution. Any benzene ring substituent will always undergo electrophilic substitution. The only place where I have halogen exchange is A. Okay. Same question repeating. Next. Decomposition of benzene diazonium chloride by using CuCl2 per HCl to form chlorobenzene. Now we know this, right? N2 plus Cl minus is the diazonium chloride. Now if you put Cu2Cl2 in the presence of HCl to form chlorobenzene, this reaction is what is called as Gattermann. Sorry, Sandmeyer's. Right? In Gattermann, what did I done? In Gattermann, you would have put Cu in the presence of HCl. Same compound, but if you put Cu in the presence of HCl or HBr, that becomes Gattermann. Okay. So in this case, it is going to be, Gattermann is not even there. So you don't have to confuse yourself. So it is Sandmeyer's. Okay. Next. Alcohol compounds reacts only as electrophiles. They cannot act as they react only as nucleophiles. Why? Because you see that ROH is there. Now I can have this lone pair present, right? So this can go and attack some other compound as a nucleophile, right? But can it be an electrophile? No, I don't think so, right? So obviously only as nucleophile is the answer, right? Now the correct order of acidic strength of the following compounds is very easy, right? So all you have to understand is the acidic strength is is directly proportional to the stability of the conjugate base. What is conjugate base? After removing H plus, whatever is remaining is what is called as your conjugate base, right? You remove H plus, something will be remaining in the acid. That is your conjugate base. So if the conjugate if the conjugate base formed is stable, right, then that particular acid is a strong acid, right? Fine. So now you just assume that all these are negative charges, right? H is removed and there is the negative charges. These are the conjugate bases, right? Now, how do you go for stability? More and more neutral the compound is, I would say lesser and lesser the charge that particular molecule has, more and more is the stability. More towards neutrality, more stability, right? So now this is a negative charge. In general, can I say electron withdrawing group will stabilize this charge, right? Because it is a negative charge, I need this negative charge to be decreasing, right? So keeping that in mind, okay, now you see that NO2, okay, this is just phenol, don't worry about it, right? Now you see that NO2 is there, right? Now if you check where and all are the negative charges going from this phenoxide ion, you will see that the negative charge would be there in the ortho and para positions if you go for the resonance structures, Okay, you will find that the negative charge is there in ortho and para position. So in ortho or para position, if you have an electron withdrawing group, that is going to be really crazy. That is going to give a lot of stability, right? And that's exactly what I have in this case. This NO2 is an electron withdrawing group, that too by resonance, minus R effect, right? So it is going to highly decrease the negative charge on this particular species, right? So I would say this is the first one. B will have the maximum acidic strength because the conjugate base of B is highly getting stabilized because of NO2 at para position. Very careful. Okay, right. Next. Now here I have OCH3 and I have NO2. Now OCH3, if it was there in ortho or para position, this would have been showing me plus R effect, electron donating group, right? I know there's a lone pair, it'll be donated, all this stuff can happen, right? But in its meta position, it has no effect with respect to resonance. Again, the same reason why, because in the phenoxide ion, the negative charges are found only at ortho and para positions. All right. Okay. So now this OCH3, since oxygen is more electronegative, it is going to show me minus I effect. It is not only resonance, inductive effect can also happen. Right now, but if this was in para position, this would have shown only plus R. Now remember that for inductive effect, distance matters. Okay, right. So here I see that there is minus A effect. Here also I will not have any resonance. Here also I'll have minus A effect because nitrogen is electronegative, but which will show a higher negative minus A effect, obviously OCH3, because oxygen is more electronegative than nitrogen. So the next rank goes to C. Oh, okay. Why no C is there? All of them are D. Okay, okay. So we have to take into account of this plus R also. Okay, anyways, if this will show minus R and minus I, this will show plus R and minus I, so definitely this will be more favorable. So next after that, D should come. Right. Next, obviously, your C should come, no doubt about it. Right, because this is a minus I effect, even though phenol, if you want to compare, phenol has nothing, this has a minus I group, which will decrease the electron density. So that comes, then comes your A, because it has no electron donating group. And the last you see, this is going to show me plus R, which will increase, very, very high increase in the negative charge. So the last goes to E, right? So B, D, C, A, E, B, D, C, A, E right here. Right, that is the reaction. Right. Next, again, this is a very easy question. Alcohol with organic acid, it's called esterification reaction. We know how to do this, right? ROH, and then you have this HOC double bond O, R dash. This is your alcohol, this is your acid. Now what you have to remember, you have to remove H from alcohol, OH from acid. If you remove this minus H2O, you are going to form ROC double bond O, R dash. This is your ester. Okay, that is what is happening here. Okay, next, phenol on distillation with zinc dust. I know what is going to happen. Benzene is going to form, right? I have your phenol with your zinc dust, right? I'm going to convert this into benzene, right? That's the answer. Next, anisole can be prepared by the action of methyl iodide on sodium phenate. The reaction is called as what? Williams synthesis, I know. Okay, say look at this. Methyl, what? Okay, sodium phenate is this. Oh god, some problem. Okay, so sodium phenate is O minus Na plus with your CH3I. I know what is going to happen. This will come and attack here, and I minus breaks. So all you're going to get is anisole. OCH3. Right? So this is nothing but a nucleophilic substitution, and by nucleophilic substitution, you're producing an ether. I think something should strike your mind. This is nothing but Williamson synthesis. Right? How is it? RO minus Na plus Rx, some R dash X. What are you going to get? RO R dash. Same reaction. Right? So this is nothing but Williamson synthesis. Next. Which of the following compounds is an aromatic alcohol? Now, please understand, OH should be directly attached to a benzene ring. Only then it is called an aromatic alcohol. So OA is okay. This is not okay because in between there is a carbon. This is okay. Only A and D, nothing else. This also is having in between there's a carbon. No, it should be directly attached to your benzene ring. Okay, next. right? Which of the following will yield phenol as the product? Now, this is your Dow's process. If you can remember, nucleophilic substitution reaction for chlorobenzene will not happen normally, but if I go for very high temperature, very high pressure, it will happen. So here I will get phenol, right? Next, you go for Na2. Oh God, this you won't have not studied this, but this will also give me phenol, okay? Right? This is how you go for diacerization, right? So if you have NH2, if you go for NaNO2 plus HCl, right? Now this is your diacetylation that is going to form your diazonium salt. You'll study in detail about this in amine chapter. Don't worry about this now. N2 plus Cl minus. Now when you go for hydrolysis of this, you are going to get phenol. Okay, so this is also right. This is also right. Next, oleum. Oleum is H2SO, H2SO4 plus SO2, right? And NaOH in heating. Yes, this will also give me. I think you must have learned this reaction in your phenol, right? Next, NaOH 298 Kelvin, 1 atmospheric pressure. No, nothing will happen. I need to have very high temperature, very high pressure. Low temperature, low pressure. Nothing will happen. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3. Do I have the option? Yes, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, but don't worry about this question. This question will not be asked to you in your exam because this is not in your syllabus yet, right? Okay, next. In alcohols, an increase in branching of the carbon chain results in the boiling point to be decreasing. We know boiling point is directly proportional to the molecular mass, inversely proportional to the branching, right? And directly proportional to hydrogen bond if you have. And this is the most important criteria. Okay, anyways, in this question, branching will decrease the boiling point, Okay, next, same question, I think repeating in 34. Next, the cyclic structures of monosaccharides are given below. Which of them are anomers? Okay, so see, right, for anomers, you have to look into the carbon which is a hemiacetal. Or if you're talking about the cycle, if this is your cyclic structure, right, in the cyclic structure, whichever compound, if I'm talking about monosaccharide, okay, so whichever cyclic in the cyclic structure, whichever carbon is having the hemiacetal. What is hemiacetal? I hope you know. OH and OR in the same carbon is what is called a hemiacetal. This you have to look for in the cyclic structure, right? And then if you go for the straight chain structure, the carbonyl carbon, right, the carbonyl carbon is the anomeric carbon in your straight chain structure. Okay, right? Both of these are your anomeric carbons. Okay, now look at this. Now see where I have OH and OR. Now this carbon, if you check, right, I have an OH and you see that there is OC attached. So this is your anomeric carbon. Same way. Oh, you have to see what are anomers. Okay, now see, first we'll decide the anomeric carbons and we'll check. Okay, next you see that this is having OH and OR. Same way, this one is having OH and OR. So whatever the carbon atoms I have marked, these are your anomeric carbons. What are anomers? Anomers are stereoisomers which will have different orientation only, one and only at the anomeric carbons. Right? In the anomeric carbon, the configuration should be different. That's all you have to look for. Okay. Now see, 1 and 2 will check anomeric carbon. These are the anomeric carbons. I have H, OH, right? Here I have OH, H. Yes, definitely 1 and 2 are anomers. Okay, 1 and 2 are anomers. And what I'm this thing is, you see that how many carbons are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again, 7 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbons are there. So 3 we cannot even take. Okay, it is having extra carbon atom. But if you check 1 and 2, they are having 6 carbon atom, and exactly at the anomeric carbon there is different orientation. H, OH, OH, H. So which are the following are anomers? Only 1 and 2. 3 is not even in the picture. Okay, I hope you got what I'm trying to say, right? Next, combination of nitrogen containing heterocyclic base. Okay, this is a very good question. Combination of nitrogen containing heterocyclic base with 1 position of sugar. Now look at this, nitrogenous base with your sugar. What is it called as? Remember this, base plus sugar is what is called as your nucleotide, right? And when you have the base plus the sugar plus the phosphate P, that is your, oh sorry, this is nucleoside. Okay, I'm so sorry, this is nucleoside, this is your nucleotide. Okay, so all you have to look for is nucleotide. Okay, but base, sorry, nucleoside is what you have to look for, because talking about base plus sugar, which is nothing but nucleoside. Okay, nucleoside is right here, B. Next, the major component of starch, it's not there in your syllabus, polysaccharides, but you can just remember that starch is a polymer of glucose. Okay, the entire thing is made up of glucose. Okay, next, progesterone is responsible, oh God, fine, is preparing the uterus for implantation of the fertilized egg, development of secondary female characteristics. I think this is what is correct. Controlling the menstrual cycle, no, that is some other hormone. Secondary male characteristic, no, that is for testosterone, right? So the correct answer would be B. Even though I don't know biology, like little I know. So with that, I'll be able to answer this. Okay, right. Fine. So what is not in nucleic acid? The sequence is, I don't know whether you know this. So see, you will have the sugar. No. Sorry, you will have your you will have the sugar, right? In between, you have your phosphate, something you have, and then here you will have your base. Okay, this is the framework, right? Sugar, phosphate, and base. This is how the framework works, right? So sugar, phosphate, base. Where do I have? Or say base, phosphate, sugar. Do I have? Yes, right there. Okay, base, phosphate, sugar, or sugar, phosphate, base is correct. Right? Okay, next. Which of the following is an essential amino acids? Please check this. You have your exam. I don't have my exam. I don't have to remember this, but you have to remember this. Okay, fine. Next. Amorphous solids are isotropic. Yes, correct. Right. Properties like refractive index, electrical conductance have different values in different directions. This is absolutely wrong. So A is true, R is false. Next. In any ionic solid, Mx Schottky effect, the number of positive and negative ions are same. Yes. Right. Fine. Because one cation moves, and because of the one anion also leaves. They will have equal number of cation and cation ions. So this is also correct. This is also correct, and it's the correct explanation. That because of this only, I have equal number of positive and negative ions. Right. So both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Next, azeotropic mixture are formed only by non-ideal solutions. Yes, absolutely. Right. Azeotropic mixture cannot be separated by fractional distillation. This is also correct, but this is not the correct explanation. Right? Why does non-ideal solutions form azeotropes? That has to be explained. Why is it that they cannot be separated by fractional distillation? Because they're going to form a single unit of a liquid. That is why you're not able to separate it. So both A and R are true. It is not the correct explanation of A is the answer. Next, the sum of the mole fraction of all the components in solution is unity. That we already know. Right? And mole fraction is independent of temperature. That is also correct. But these and this are not even connected. Okay, so again, B is the answer. Next, in both rhombic and monoclinic, sulfur exists as S8, but oxygen exists only as O2. Okay, this is correct. Right, fine. Oxygen forms p pi multiple bonds with a small size and small bond length, but p pi bonding is not possible in sulfur. No. Please look at this. Oxygen forms p pi bonds, but sulfur can form p pi d pi because it has an d orbital present. Okay, that is why sulfur can exist as S8, but oxygen can exist as O2 only because it can form only p pi. But this can form p pi as well as p pi d pi. Both are possible in sulfur, right? So this is not correct. Okay, so A is true, R is false is what we are looking for. Next. NaCl reacts with concentrated H2SO4 to give colorless fumes with a pungent smell, but on adding MnO2, the fumes become greenish yellow. Okay, MnO2 oxidizes HCl to chlorine gas, which is greenish yellow. Okay, this is correct. Pungent smell. What is the pungent smell? NaCl reacts with H2. Oh, H2. No, H2 doesn't have a smell, isn't it? See, when I put NaCl in H2SO4. What do you think will happen? It is HCl. Understood. Fine. So you have NaCl, Na2SO4 plus HCl, and this is your pungent smelling gas, right? And this HCl, when it reacts with MnO2, I'm going to form Cl2 gas. This is your greenish yellow gas, right? So both are correct. Both reasons are correct, and it is the correct explanation. So A is the correct answer, right? Next, the presence of nitro group at ortho and para position increases the reactivity of halogen towards nucleophilic substitution. Absolutely true. Now look at this. If you, for example, have electron donating groups at ortho and para position, say NO2, NO2, and NO2 in your ortho and para position. Now, normally, if these were not there and I want to convert this into phenol, what should I do? High temperature, high pressure. But all I have to do here is just put H2O and slightly heat it, warm it. And you are going to get this product. Okay. Now, what do you, in Dow's process, we know what you have to do. 300 degrees Celsius, 600 atmospheric pressure. All these things you have to give. But just because I have NO2, which is an electron withdrawing group present in ortho and para position, all I have to go for is H2O and little warming it, and you are going to get this. This is nothing but your picric acid. And we know we are going to find this in vomits. When you vomit, the yellow color liquid which you get in your vomit is nothing but picric acid. Okay, anyways, so this is true. Okay, first statement is true. Nitro group being an electron withdrawing group decreases the electron density over the benzene ring. Absolutely true. When it is going to decrease the electron density, there will be some positive charges liberated. So I can have a nucleophile coming and attacking. That's exactly the reason. Right? Okay, so both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Right. Next, haloalkanes show hydrogen bonding. No, they don't. Right? Haloalkanes are insoluble water. That is correct. Right? So I have A is false, R is true. Right? Next, ortho and para nitrophenols can be separated by steam distillation. Yes, because I know para nitrophenol will form intermolecular hydrogen bonding. Ortho will form intramolecular hydrogen bonding, and we will see what they're telling. Ortho isomer steam volatile due to chelation. Okay, chelation is okay, but para isomer is not due to the association of molecules by intermolecular hydrogen bonding. See, guys, this term chelation you wouldn't have studied. This is nothing but a ring structure. Now look at this. Chelation means formation of ring, right? So you have your OH. Now you have your NO2 also. Right now, what are you seeing between this and this? I can have some interaction. Right now, somehow you're forming a ring structure kind of thing. So that is correct. The reason here is intramolecular. So I would suggest that both these are true, and it is the correct explanation also. Right? A is the correct answer. Okay, next, para nitrophenol gives more electrophilically substituted compound than metamethoxyphenol. Para nitrophenol gives more electrophilic substituted product than your metamethoxyphenol. No, no. This should be metamethoxy. See, look at this. I have OH, and if I have OCH3 here, and you have OH and NO2 here, right? Now, please understand, we have to undergo electrophilic substitution, right? That means there should be large electron density. The high electron density should be there in the benzene ring. Only then the electrophile will come and attack. Right now, NO2 is an electron withdrawing group, right? So definitely it will decrease electron density, so that positive charges are going to come in the benzene ring, right? That's not going to be the case. So ortho para nitrophenol gives more electrophilic substitute. It is not correct, because methoxy, you see that it is going to be electron donating, right? But in the meta position, it has no role to play. It will show only minus I effect. Here it is going to show minus R effect. Both of them are electron withdrawing only in this particular case, but this is showing by resonance. This is showing by inductive effect. Resonance is always stronger, right? So para nitrophenol is going to be less reactive for electrophilic substitution than compared to metamethoxyphenol. A itself is wrong. You can blindly say A is false, R is true. Okay, methoxy shows both obviously minus R. If it would have shown minus R if this was in ortho or para position, but in this case it is in meta. That is why it is showing only minus I. Right, so this is true. Anyways, okay, 51 to 55 are going to be based upon this one. Okay, ROR, HX, whatever. Okay, fine. Fine. So CH3 thrice COCH3. Okay. CH3O hydroiodic acid, the fragments obtained after reaction are. Now look at this. You have CH3, CH3, CH3O, CH3, and you have CH3O, C2H5. Right? Now, for both of this, I'm putting HI and HI. Okay. Now we know what we have to do, isn't it? Now remember that this is an SN2 substitution, people. SN2 substitution. The first step will always be the attack of H plus, right? Though the lone pair on oxygen will come and take up the H plus. Okay. So what is going to happen? You will have CH3, 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 O, H plus CH3. And in this case, you would have had CH3O, H plus C2H5, right? Now the next step in both of them is going to be your iodine. I mean, I minus is going to come, right? Now I told you it is an SN2 substitution, so it will go for a lesser steric hindered compound, and in this case it is CH3. It will come and attack here, right? And in this case, the smaller one is CH3 here, that will come and attack, right? So what are you expecting here? You would have formed CH3. No, I think one of them will be iodide. Okay. In this case, I'm so sorry. In this case, it is going to be the bigger one, because in this case alone, whenever you have at least one of them to be tertiary, SN1 dominates. Okay, now you see one of them is tertiary here. So tertiary carbocation can be easily formed. So I minus will come and attack here only. I'm so sorry. Right? But if both of them are primary, both of them are primary, then the smaller one will take place because SN2 is going to dominate. Right? But if one of them is tertiary, SN1 will dominate, formation of carbocation will happen. So you will form CH3 I plus CH3OH. Very simple. Right? And in this case, you see that this is a smaller group, both are primary and primary. So smaller group SN2 will dominate. Right? So you will form CH3I plus C2H5OH. Okay, it's all about the mechanism. Right? Okay. So let us see what we have. You have CH3 thrice I, CH3OH, and I need, no, this is wrong, right? CH3 thrice CI, CH3OH is correct. CH3I and C2H5OH. Yeah, this is the correct answer. Okay, right? Fine. Next, you have HI excess, right? Very simple. All you have to do is break this, put H and I. Again, you break, see, how do I show this? Right? So you see, this is a phenol group which is directly attached, right? So definitely you have to put the H here and I here, right? And you are going to break this bond. Now in this case, it is going to be I here and H here. No, I guess. Anyways, we'll check the options, what we have. See, let me write the compound properly. Okay, benzene ring with one oxygen, another oxygen. Okay, this is what I have, right? So if I break this, I have to put H here and I here, right? And if this is not directly attached, isn't it? So my structure is wrong. Okay, so you have okay, this is what I have. Okay, fine. So here I put H and I have to break this one. If I break this one, I'll be getting, no, this should be, yeah, the smaller one is this one. So I and a H, right? So what you would have formed? You would have formed definitely phenol. Okay, this one, this part is going to form phenol. And this one, this carbon has two I's, right? So CH2I2 is what would have been there. And this would have been CH2OH. This is what would have been. Okay, so I mean, it should have been the same compound. This is still attached. Okay, so this is still attached here. So this would have been CH2OH here, and you would have formed CH2I2. Okay, so B is the correct answer to this question. Tough questions, good questions. Next, which of the following either is unlikely to be cleaved by hot concentrated HBr? Now, this will not happen because I told you it is a nucleophilic substitution. Now, you see both oxygen attached to the benzene ring. So, this benzene ring will not undergo nucleophilic substitution. Blindly, you can say. So, this is the answer. Right. Next, among the following either which one will produce methyl alcohol on treatment with this thing? Methyl alcohol. Now, this would have formed methyl iodide. Right. Methyl alcohol. Yes, this will form methyl alcohol. Yes, because this is tertiary. I will come here and H will come here. This is the answer. B is the answer. Right. Next, this one reacts with 1 mole of HI. The product formed is what? I think addition reaction takes place. The nucleophilic reaction doesn't take. A nucleophilic substitution doesn't take place. So I think that to only 1 mole of HI. Okay, now look at this, right? So if I break this bond and I put H here, I here, so what you would have gotten is CH3CH plus CH3CH2I is what I would have had. Iodoethane is present for sure, right? And also you would have formed this one. This is going to undergo tautomerization. I don't know whether you know this. You can convert this into CH3CHO. Don't worry about it now, right? Anyways, the answer is iodoethane. Okay, done. So I think that's done. Anybody has any questions? Particularly, you want me to solve anything? Okay, fine. Thank you so much, people. We'll meet again whenever possible. Thank you so much. I'm ending the class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.